It's another episode of the Brett Allen Show, and today we are talking Hostile Territory, a brand new film dropping here very soon, starring the amazingly talented Brian Presley. This film he wrote, directed, starred in, has family in this. This is literally a family affair. Brian, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, you have such a great career, and we'll get into a lot of that here. But let's talk about this film because I had the privilege of watching it, and it's just a lot of fun. It's a great Western. There's a lot of things happening here. How did this whole idea come about, Brian? What was the genesis of it? Because it's a great film.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to see it. And Hostile Territory was a film that came to me. I really wanted to do a film and write a film that was set in the late 1800s, early 1900s. I wanted to have a true historic backdrop.
Sure.
And I'm a big fan of those films that, films like Glory was one of my favorite films with
Oh, yeah.
Matthew Broderick. And so, but I also wanted to do a Western and in a non-traditional sense where, most Westerns, you have the cowboys are the good guys and you have the Indians are the bad guys. And so I wanted to do something that would appeal to the Western genre audience, but also would kind of break some of those cliches that, maybe more traditional Westerns have. And so that was the birth of Hostile Territory, and the orphan train movement and the orphan trains that ran for 75 years, transporting hundreds of thousands of kids that were left homeless, during the war, Civil War, post-Civil War, is, I believe, something that not a lot of people know about. And I had that kind of piece of history as the backdrop of the movie. And then just creating themes that I believe are important, where at the end of the movie, we're all better running this life together, no matter what, religion you are, no matter what race you are. Peace and love kind of triumph everything. And there's so much division happening in our country, in our world, and very parallel to what was happening back then. And so I have wrote some great African-American roles where Natalie Whittle, who plays the role of Alice, and she escaped slavery, and her daughter was ripped from her and put on these trains, and her journey syncs up with my character to find her child. And we have some great Native American roles where when I came across Company K, a Native Union sharpshooting group out of Michigan, I just thought, wow, that is awesome. How badass would that be to have, basically like Navy SEALs of that time. And I immediately wrote them into the journey to have them be a part of the heroic journey, which was, to help this man find his children. And so lots of elements are touched upon in the movie that are you could literally spin off and do a whole movie about the Native Union sharpshooting group. Fortunately, you only have so much time in a feature to have a narrative, and so. But it was important to have some of those elements where there's good and bad within all race, within all culture, and sometimes what we perceive as the bad guy, usually there's justifications behind those people. The hostile Native Americans that were really out to kill white people. In some ways, you can't blame them for being so hostile, and they were removed from their land. And what happened to them with the Indian Removal Act in the early 1800s and the Trail of Tears? I mean, it's horrific. When you really break it down. So for me, I hope that audiences take away, those messages from watching the movie, but also still get, I want to still keep the heart of, there's no enemy a parent wouldn't face to get the children back. There's no mountain you wouldn't cross to get your kids back, no matter who the enemy was. us. And so I think it's a theme that everybody can relate to. And whether you have kids or you don't have kids, family is important. And when in watching somebody, we're all faced with trials in life, and watching somebody overcome what we may think is the unimaginable obstacle. Our human spirit to live and fight is much stronger than we give ourselves credit for. And we're watching that in Ukraine today.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think it has all those things. It's definitely a ride, and it's definitely filled with all kinds of emotional elements that I think will grip an audience in their seat, and but also leave an audience with um, a good feeling at the end that we all have a calling in life to help others in need, and be of impact in a positive way on this earth. So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it has all of those elements, and I think, yeah, I mean, the message, the love letter here is family and the importance of family, and all of those things that you mentioned, and of course, you have family in the film as well, so it's a double sword there. How does that conversation go when you're putting these things together? Is it, hey, you're going to be in this, or is it, hey, are you interested? Or is it just, maybe a combination of those two things? Because I imagine it has to be really great when you're working with family on multiple levels for sure.
Yeah, this one was really fun, just having my kids there for the bulk of it. One of the hardest things in this business is when you go off and do a project is being away from your family, being away from your
Yeah.
kids. And that's probably the worst part about this business. And so being able to have everybody there was amazing in itself. And my kids have grown up around this industry, and I'm very protective. I won't let my kids just go do anything. I think a few of them have desires to potentially pursue this industry, but I want my kids to be kids. I see too many times where I've been on sets where it's an adult environment. Let's just be honest.
Yeah, for sure. No question about that.
And I, I've seen kids on TV shows where they lose a lot of their childhood. And I'm not criticizing anybody who does that and goes down that route with their children. But, for me, it's been very important to have my kids. I want them to remain kids and do kid things and play on sports teams. And at the same time, begin to teach them a little bit about how this industry works. And, they're able to come in an environment that I'm controlling, so it's a safe place. And so this one kind of naturally, I kind of wrote the roles kind of tailored to them and their personalities, and knew that if I could pull out what was with inside them, that I would be good. And so that was one of the biggest challenges before I really set out to go make this. Was okay. The elements are going to be tough, so I've got to really have kids that I know I can count on, that I know their parents, and that are tough kids. And so I coach my son's youth football team, and so the other kids in the movie were all kids that I've coached since they were 7 years old. And
Nice.
so they on set, they're all like, "Coach, what do you want me to do here? Coach, what do I do here?" And so, but half the battle, especially with kids, is making them comfortable with the director, and so that it's no different than me coaching them in a game or practice than it is coaching them in a movie.
Yeah.
And so I kind of just took the worlds and kind of collided them together, and I think it worked, and I think the kids all did an amazing job for never have. None of the kids have really ever had any acting experience or been in front of the camera, and so they all, I think, really stepped up and had a blast doing it and took the bull by the horns, and they all delivered great performances.
Yeah, everybody did a good job, and that's always great. Especially having coached some of these kids in little league that kind of know you and have built that trust already. So
Right.
you're just kind of transferring things over to a movie set, and how that works. As we wrap here, you've been a part of some really great projects. You've been on
And
the production side, the producer side. You've written, you've starred in, you got a really early, quick, and fast start in your career. I think a lot of people would know of Port Charles, which you were a part of, and just really all these things. But when did you know that you wanted to become a storyteller or an actor, Brian? Where was that moment in your life where you knew this was something that you were going to be doing?
I was shooting a movie called Touchback with Kurt Russell,
Yes.
and
Great film, by the way.
thank you. Yeah, it was one of those. I played football in high school, and so that movie was fun in a lot of ways. Getting to put the pads back on and go back out there and suit up. I quickly realized I wasn't 18 anymore when we made that movie.
Yeah.
It was a night shoot, and we were sitting out there. It's probably 1 in the morning, and Kurt and I having a conversation back and forth, and he and I really hit it off. And I was talking to him about the Great Alaskan Race, and that I'd written the script and really was beginning to have the desire to get behind the camera, and felt like I was ready to make that step in that journey and that leap. And he gave me some great words of wisdom. That he said, I've had opportunities to direct movies in my career, and I've never made that jump. But he is my biggest piece of advice is, if you see the movie, then you should be the one to tell the story. And if you don't see it, no matter how lavish or how much you like who's involved, if you don't see it, then don't step behind the wheel to tell the story. And I've kind of just kept that with me. And I left that shoot going, Great Alaskan Race I had written. I saw the movie, and I set out on a quest that I got to tell the story. This is going to be my first film. And, I didn't let things get in the way. And it took me, 10 years to get that movie up and going. And I think persistence is key in this business. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a business of no. And, if I tell my kids, and I tell other people who are, maybe entering this business, I mean, it's a tough business. And, for me, I've always been, roll your sleeves up and find a way. And you kind of have to have that mindset. And, in today's world, the more diverse you are, like if my kids want to pursue this, then, I'm sending them to film school. You need to learn it all. You may have one thing you think you want to focus in on, but, you need to know how to do it all. And if you want to have a career in it. And, when I look to hire somebody, I like to know they can do 3 or 4 different things, not just one specific thing. And so for me, that's really when I set out to get behind the camera. And since then I've, written 10, 12 scripts, and got TV series that I've written. And for me, I didn't go to film school, writing school. I mean, for me, I just began to see the stories, and so I would just start writing. And next thing I knew, I had a screenplay. And for me, it was a little bit trial by error. And but Kurt really gave me a lot of inspiration to set out to go down this pave this journey, and go down this road.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. A lot of great work. One last question for fun. Uh, are we going to get any more mechanic movies? I know those were great films.
Oh yeah, there's potentially. It's funny. I did. The story behind Mechanic is I just finished a movie called Home of the Brave with Sam Jackson and Jessica Biel
Yeah,
and
great.
Irwin.
Another great film. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, and Irwin Winkler, he directed that. Well, Irwin produced the original Mechanic. And so after that movie, he approached me to play the lead. It was gonna be me and Stallone rebooting the Mechanic. And then things went haywire, and I was on something else. And make a long story short, I got involved in helping. I had my production company and got involved in helping put it together. And but great franchise. I mean, I hope that we are able to do some more. And I've got a handful of projects that I'm just involved in a producing standpoint that we have
Yeah.
forward, and that are great stories with great directors on board. And so, you never know. So,
Yeah, I mean anything with Statham is great. I do remember reading about that back in the day. But again, we're talking Hostile Territory, written, directed, produced by Mr. Brian Presley. A lot of great, fantastic work out there. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
yeah, I appreciate you taking time to have the interview and cover the movie.